During my 37-year career at NASA, I've trained shuttle astronauts, I've served as a branch chief, and I'm currently the Mission Control Center Operations Manager. Also, for 5 years, I chaired a board that was responsible for setting up the interfaces for our international partners' control centers and their requirements that required extensive international travel. I am legally blind with 5 degrees of my field of vision left. I have retinitis pigmentosa, and it's kind of like looking through maybe a straw with about 40% of the pixels removed. I was traveling in the summer of 2011, and I was in Moscow staying at the Volga. And the Volga is like an old hotel. It's got tall ceilings, dimly lit, and lots of steps up and lots of steps down. I got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and when I shut the door, I knew immediately something had gone wrong. I thought to myself, Houston, we have a problem. I turned around, shut the door, and it was locked. I was locked out in the hallway wearing just my whitey tighties, my Fruit of the Looms. I had no cane, no cell phone, and none of my teammates on the same floor. I did a quick inspection as best I could and realized my underwear was clean, so my mama would be proud. I made my way to the elevator and I hit the bottom button. And when I was waiting on the elevator, I started thinking, what if somebody's on there? What if it's a female? Doors open, nobody screamed, so I got on. There's a whole array of buttons, and so I decided to play Russian roulette and hit the bottom one, and bingo, I'd chosen wisely. When I stepped out of the elevator, I thought to myself, I need to review the obstacle course that lay before me. I would go about 3 meters, and then I'd go down about 3 steps. I'd turn to the right, go a few meters, I'd go up 2 steps, go about 20 meters, go down some steps, turn to the right again, I should be at the front desk. To psych myself up, I started chanting, USA, USA. I would not do a face plant in my whitey tighties in the Russian Olympics. I was representing NASA in my country. So like a ninja, I slowly made my way with great skill to the front desk, and I was so happy to hear a male voice when I got there. So I asked him for my key and for a towel. Now y'all may be thinking, a towel to cover up your Fruit of the Looms, but no, it was actually to be used as a tether. I didn't think my Russian comrade would like me putting my arm around his and we parading through the lobby with me in my underwear. I had 3 lessons learned from that adventure. The first one was always keep my cell phone with me. My second one was to never shut my bathroom door. And my third one was boxers, boxers, boxers. Now, I learned a lot while traveling the world blind, going to different places, but nothing could prepare me for the phone call and the trip I had to make about 5 years ago. And my oldest son, Tyler, has an adventurous heart. He has hiked and scuba dived around the world in Peru, in New Zealand, in Norway, Alaska, Hawaii. And on this trip, he'd gone to Africa for a safari. And on his last day, he was going to scuba dive off the coast of Zanzibar. It was on July the 17th of 2016, about 10:30 on a Sunday night when my wife and I received a phone call telling us that our son Tyler was paralyzed on the right side and he was paralyzed below the sternum. Those are hard words for a parent to hear. And my wife and I cried together. We got down on our knees and prayed together. And we got up and started developing a plan of how we were going to help Tyler. Now, working at NASA, we have the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. It's a huge swimming pool where we practice spacewalks. And we actually have one tomorrow morning. And we have a hydrobaric chamber there. So I knew the person who ran that, Mike Fox. And even though it was about 12 o'clock at night, I gave him a call. He told me under no circumstances could Tyler get on a commercial flight flying at altitude because it could release nitrogen bubbles that could kill him. I knew right then that I'd be going to Africa and to Zanzibar. I had a passport. I was familiar with international travel, and failure was not an option. So the next morning I got up, went into work, grabbed my passport out of my desk drawer, told my boss I'd be gone for a few days, stopped by the Minute Clinic at CVS, got shots and pills, and then got online to get a ticket. So the best ticket I could get had me going to London with a 6-hour layover, then to Cairo for a 4-hour layover, and then I would go to Tanzania. And then at Tanzania, I would get a plane over to Zanzibar. We packed, my wife helped me pack 3 shirts, 3 pair of boxers, and 3 pair of shorts and a backpack, and we were off to the airport. Now, my wife's passport had expired, so she would stay in Houston and run Operation Save Tyler from there. On the way to the airport, we were actually able to talk to Tyler for the first time, and he sounded so brave and strong. It was just so inspiring. He had had a chamber run and regained the use of his right arm, but he was still paralyzed below the sternum. He told us if he had to, he'd be the best wheelchair athlete in the world. Emboldened by my son's, just his courage and his spirit, I got on the plane and headed out. After about 24 hours of travel, we got to Tanzania, or I did. And when I was getting off the plane, I was just trying to follow the mob or the herd. And the next thing I knew, I was outside and nobody had taken my passport. Nobody had gotten my visa stamped. So I just said I had to go with it. I was not going to go back in. Sherry had arranged for a lady to meet me there. She was going to help me get to the plane to get to Zanzibar and to the hospital, but nobody was out there. They had also powered off my phone, so I had no phone to do anything with. So eventually I made my way to a little airport and bought me a ticket to go to Zanzibar. And when I got on the plane, I realized I was sitting on the bench, and I'd bought a ticket on a skydiving plane, but they'd given me no parachute. Luckily, I was able to make it to the island, get to the hospital, and Tyler and I had a joyous reunion. Tyler had had a couple more chamber runs, and now he was able to walk, but still had no feeling below his sternum, and he was having to use a catheter. The hospital was in the inner city, far away from the resort area. It had no air conditioning. The shower, the toilet, and the sink was in one enclosure. There was always 2 to 3 inches of water. They had no cafeteria, nobody that actually would serve you and bring you food, and there were lots of mosquitoes in our hospital room. So each day, a local doctor would pick Tyler and me up about 3:30. We would travel for an hour out to an area where they had a hyperbaric chamber. Tyler would take 3 runs. When he had finished, we'd get back in the car and the doctor would drive us back, usually starting about 10 o'clock at night. Now, on every trip, we would get stopped by either police or the military, and they would do document inspections, and sometimes they charged fees. They were really bribes to give us back our documentation, and they had machine guns, so it was really scary, especially at night. After about 7 days, the doctor decided that Tyler was making no progress, so totally against the advice of our American doctors, he quit treatments. This really was upsetting, and we were trying to figure out what to do. So from day one, my wife and I, Sherry, had started trying to figure out how we would get Tyler home. It would require a Learjet, and it would cost $1.2 million. And as you can imagine, the insurance company said, this is not covered. So Sherry and I thought about doing a GoFundMe, maybe using a boat to get him around since we couldn't go on a plane, possibly doing selling our house, cashing out our 401k, but nothing came up with the money we needed and as fast as we needed since he wasn't getting treatments. After about 2 weeks of negotiating, going back and forth, the insurance company told us that they would pay for would cover it under the insurance. And that was on August 1st. And that happens to be my wife's birthday. So best birthday present ever. We would fly on a Learjet at low altitude. From Zanzibar, we would go to Sudan. From Sudan to some islands off of Greece. From Greece to Germany. From Germany, we'd go to Finland. From there to Iceland, then to Canada, and then to New Orleans, where Tyler would get treatments. On August 4th, we were picked up by the ambulance and taken to the plane on the runway. We were so happy about doing that, but when they came out to inspect our documentation, they pulled me off the plane. Now, the pilot already told me that they were on a very tight schedule, so I knew that I might be delayed a while. So I told him if I wasn't back in 30 minutes, to take off without me. They took me in the airport, asked me a ton of questions, searched me over, and then just stuck me in a room. After I was sitting there for about 10 minutes, I thought, I just got to do something. So I made my way to a door, and I just bent over, grabbed my knees, and fake dry heaves. Oh! Oh! Next thing I knew, I was like surrounded. People were patting my head, checking on me, doing things, and they took me to the plane. It was just a joyous moment. So we made that trip and got to New Orleans, where we had amazing doctors treat Tyler for 2 weeks in the hospital there. Then we were released and he went to Houston for more treatments. And I just had three things I would take that helped me get through that journey. My faith in God, my wife, Sherry, my family and friends, and Tyler, his tremendous courage. So I have a praise report. Tyler was married 2 weeks ago. And on Saturday, just a couple of days ago, we picked Tyler and Emily up, his wife, at the airport, and they'd been on their honeymoon in Hawaii. And we told them no scuba diving allowed. Now, I have three sons. I have Carson, my middle son, and he works as at our church that he was raised in. And I have my youngest son, Chase, and he actually works for the state of Texas, helping blind kids get an education and to pay for their school and helps them with jobs. My middle son, Carson, has my same eye disease, making it 5 generations this disease has attacked our family. We recently gave spit, some blood, and some meat, and hit our DNA defect identified as PRPL31. Carson just recently gifted us with our first grandbaby, Hank. And because of the research that's being done today, I believe Hank and Carson were never totally blind. Sometimes, as a father, I just say, you think when you start off that you're going to be the one, you're going to lead them through the darkness and into the light and all these things. But I find my children challenge me more, and they're always making me want to give more, to serve more, to live more, and especially love more. And failure is not an option.